Hello YouTubers. Alright, today we're going to talk about chokes and why you need one. A couple of them, all of them. Work through a few things and show you how to wrap some, what kind they are and everything. I did most of the work for you guys, so if you don't have to figure out materials, I kind of wrote it here what you need. These are 240 type 43s. When you're doing a choke, you can use different materials, but I read through just using it as a common mode choke. It'll cover from about 1 megahertz down to about 160 range, 160 meter, all the way up to 500 megahertz. So that if you're a tech or talking HF, these will still work just fine for using as common mode chokes. You can also use these for baluns. And people get common mode chokes confused with baluns all the time. But really, to be honest, the size that you need for killing RF, and that's the nasty shit that runs along the shield of the coax, gets into your electronics, all kinds of stuff. It's nasty. This will remove it, and it also make your receiver receive better. You'll get a lower noise floor, and what I mean by noise floor is over here. When you're running your radio or your SDR or what have you, how high you can get this number means you got the lower your noise floor. When I first started with my SDR and my wire antennas, I was running 55 and 50. But if you run your finger across there, look at all them signals you're going to miss because of that. So I started putting chokes and ferrites on my cables, and I got the noise floor all the way down to about 75. It goes up and down, it fluctuates from band to band. This is around 40 meters. Running the mag loop. I'm running the mag loop right now, but let me show you. I got some chokes on here. This is a different kind, but it's the same material, type 43. I got these from Amazon and just made sure they were the type 43s. They come in different sizes. You can see the size drops down here. And then I put a couple on my USB cables there, and then on my coax cables coming in, you can see there I've got 2 on that one cable coming in. I got 2 on the other cable coming in, and no, you can use either kind. You can use this kind or the clamp-ons. Just try to make sure your material is a type 43. That will cover you all the way up to 500 megahertz. So I'll tell you about the sizes, because you're going to run into problems if you start wanting to wrap wires. This is the problem I run into. I ordered these, the 115s. That's the size of the width of it. It's a 115. This one here is a 240, and it's 240 millimeters or whatever that is. But you're going to need the 240s if you plan on wrapping electrical cord. For one simple reason, the 115s it just won't fit. So you need to think about that. The 115 size is not bad for wrapping USB cables. So if you got a Raspberry Pi or something you're going to hook up to your SDR, maybe the cable you run from your SDR, you can wrap this. All we're doing is wrapping the wires around this ferrite. The more wraps you can get, the more you're going to take off. And pretty much that's it. Now you just killed RF noise, any kind of noise coming in or out of that cable. And if you're if you're going to transmit, I finally got my ham license. I went and studied. I studied using ham radio prep, and went and took my tests this Saturday and passed. So I'm now a tech. So one good thing there, huh? Haven't got my number yet from the ULS. I don't know what happened with that. It's been a couple days. I don't know. It may take them some time. So, but anyway, you can use these smaller ones to wrap with, wrap smaller cables with. But if you're going for your bigger cables, now what you'll want to do is, if you get a power supply and a radio, or maybe you got some noise coming in on your coax hooked up to your SDR, this will take it out, but you might need a bigger one. See what I'm saying? Now these are more expensive. These are running anywhere from $6 to $10. I got mine from the Ferrite man, or the Ferrite guy, I think, and mine was about $8 and something a piece. I made this box for my 6-meter antenna. Yeah, I have that on another video. Make sure you subscribe, and you can go back and watch watch it. But this will attach. There's 2 of these stacked together, and I hot glued them, and then wrapped them with RG8X coax. And I'll show you how I wrapped it. You can do it a couple ways. You can just wrap all the way around if you want, and just keep working your way around the core. But you want to be careful of one thing. If you're doing a lot of wraps, you don't want to have your coax ends coming out the same way. In other words, you want to keep some distance there between those cables, because if you get them too close after you wrap it, that RF is just going to jump across and it's not going to do any good. So these 43 material is great for removing RF, and the size is really going to matter depending on your cables that you're going to wrap. You're going to probably want to wrap your power supply cable going to your radio. If you're using a radio, you definitely want to either use the smaller ones, 1 or 2 of them, one on each end. You want to try to do it on each end where they're connected. So put one on this end, one over here on this end, and you can use this wrap type like that, or you can buy those clip-on style also, and just clip one on each end. And sometimes it's 2, maybe you need 2. You may find that you buy these and you put them on and you really don't see nothing. Well, that don't mean you will, or later, trying to go to a different frequency. So, what this is insurance. It keeps that noise out, and it'll lower that noise floor and get your receive a lot better. This one's just a pass-through. This box here, there's 2 of these cores inside there. I wrapped it a certain way, and instead of just taking this up onto the roof and wrapping it a couple times, okay, like such, and letting it dangle from the antenna, which is perfectly fine. You can do that because there's no electricity, no solder joints exposed, nothing like that. So you can just let it hang outside if you want. That's perfect. It'll do what it's supposed to do. I only did this box because of my 6-meter antenna. I put a special connector on it that will connect to this. I purposely designed it that way so that I can remove this from the antenna without having to solder direct. I didn't want to have to solder direct and something happening where I need that, or breaks or something. So that's why I did this box. You don't have to make a nice box, but If you do make one of these, or if you do use one of these chokes, don't put it in the middle of your coax run. Put it on the ends. Okay, that's where they go. They go on right at the antenna, or right there where it comes into your, like you just seen over there where my coax comes in. Then you use these ferrites. Okay. The reason why you want to get the sizes is because if you have open coax connector right there and you're trying to do your wraps, you're not going to be able to get your coax connector and your wraps through that little hole. That just ain't going to work. So that's why you got to learn from the sizes. I bought these. I thought they'd work, and they will on some of my cables. So I'll eventually use them. But I'm liking to getting these. One of these will give you about 1,000 watts if you're running power. I went with two that cover me up to 2,000 watts, but you're not going to run any more than 1,500, so that's why I use two inside the box. So there's a way to wrap them, and you can just coil them around if you want. I started this one to kind of show you. You can use a tie wrap, cinch it down to the. That's what I did for my box over there, and get your spacing a little better. But as you can see, I wrapped this one in a different way, and it works the same way. But I did it for the connection, not to wrap it like a balun or anything like that. I did it for the wires, and I'll show you why. The RG8, you can get about 4 wraps on it. Okay, like such here, about 4 wraps, and then what you want to do is come through and bring it over instead of continuing to wrap all the way around like that. You can do that, but just like I said, stop and leave yourself a gap between your ends. Don't get them too close. But what I did, I give it about 4 wraps, bring it over, and then start wrapping again the other way. And what that did was put 4 more wraps on there, and it allowed me to have a cable come out this side and this side. Okay. And then that way, when I mounted it in the box, my connections were well away from each other, and it worked. It's wrapped like a 1-to-1 balun. That's the reason why I wrote that 1-to-1 on there, because baluns, it depends on how you wrap them. But don't confuse these as a common choke as a balun. Okay, I only did this because of the way I wrapped it. That's it. Okay, so I wanted to explain that to you guys, and I'll explain a little bit here about a balun and why they're different. Okay, you have to know that your coax is unbalanced. Okay, you have your center, and it's dealing with positive and negative both. Okay. You got your big SO239 there, center point. Your one shaft there is dealing, or your one center plug, main center, is dealing with not negative and positive both, and that's a one wire type deal. And this is unbalanced. Okay. Now, whenever you start needing a balun and start getting into that, you're going to be probably up in the HF, high frequency band. VHF, you're just going to use your coax, and with VHF you really don't have to worry about the common mode noise as much unless you start running power. When you start running power, getting over 200 watts or so, your neighbors might notice it. Somebody else's you might bleed in on your own stuff. I don't know. Depends on your situation. But coax is unbalanced okay? And I'll just kind of slowly step into this. Your feed line is what determines if you're going to use a balun or not, okay? There's different feed lines, of course. We got coax that we normally use. There's ladder line, okay? You can buy, and that's what guys use to feed in-fed wires, and you can feed dipoles with them, stuff like that. But this is balanced line, and the window line there, if this is your coax, this is your window line. Okay, this is balanced. Okay, and then there's other feed types. You can just use a single wire. You know, yeah, there's different ways to feed antennas which require different balance. So I'm not going to go into all that. But what I want you to know is your coax is unbalanced. And if you use a window line, a feed line, instead of coax, that's a balance line. Now here's where the name comes in, okay? You need you have a balanced, right? Balanced antenna, and then you have an unbalanced antenna. B-A-L-U-N, okay? Balanced to unbalanced. That's where balun comes in, okay? And if you need a they make an right? Well, what would that be? That's unbalanced to unbalanced, an okay? So, if you have, you may have an antenna, okay, that's balanced, balanced fed and balanced antenna, okay? Some guys use 49-to-1 baluns on that. It all comes down to the impedance, the ohms that this whatever you're feeding it is, and that's how you determine the size of your balun, like a 9-to-1, 49-to-1, that kind of thing. So really all you need to know is how that works, so you don't get the terminology confused, okay? It's all because of what you feed it with, if it's balanced or unbalanced. That's pretty much it. And coax is unbalanced. Always remember that. So that's where the term balun comes in, is your balun balanced to unbalanced. Balun, okay? That's how that works. So with that being said, we're not making a balun, but I want you to know that that's the same material using a different wire, two conductor wire, and then you splice it off. How you wrap it, that's a balun. We're not doing that, okay? We're just making a common mode choke, is what to call it. All right? So there's your lesson on baluns, some of the terminology. I'm not going into it. There's better videos out there for it, but this will get you to what you need to get some noise off your coax, okay? And just like I said over here, you know, I put these ferrites on this coax, and I dropped my noise floor almost 10 dB over there. And you know, by putting those on there, I didn't really notice on there anything, but I may when I start talking, you know, VHF or something. So but you can see them here, you know, that was making noise into my computer, and it took care of the noise. I put 2 on that end and 2 on the end down there, and then I'll have my ferrites here, okay, on the feed line in, and then I'll have the balun I just made, or excuse me, it's a choke, the 1-to-1 wrap. I'll have that up on the other end of the feed line. Okay, so that's pretty much how I set mine up. I've got chokes now that I'm going to use for these 2 I got left over. One of them is going to be used for feed line for my 12-volt power supply, and that'll go on the 12-volt coming in, and I'll wrap it quite a bit. And it also these help with wire management too. Say you got this big long cable, right, and you only need this much, right? It's some people, man, they'll leave that dangling down there, you know, whatever's left. Maybe they don't want to cut it or something, you know, but they'll leave it dangling, and then they'll leave it dangling next to the coax down there, you know. Well, what's that doing? That's just feeding each one of those RF is feeding right in on each other right there. So by wrapping your cables, you know, you're shortening the distance. So if you can wrap it to the very shortness you can get, you're not going to get any RF. So you're going to get low noise on your signal meter if you get a radio. So you know, the more wraps the better. But for common choke, don't go too far. Just remember that rule: don't go too far. You don't want to get them close. So, but yeah, you're going to wrap everything. You're going to wrap your 12-volt feed line. You're going to wrap your coax jumpers going from your antenna switch or up to your SDR, or you know, maybe you're going directly to your SDR. You're going to put some ferrites on that. I've got some on mine on the feed point right there. As you can see, there's a ferrite that I dangled off the feed line for the SDR, and they were, you know, it helped, brought the noise floor down. So that's pretty much what you got to pay attention to, is your noise floor. But your chokes, like I said, you can get the clip-on ones or get these smaller ones. I ordered these with these big ones. I'm going to use these big ones on my coax, from a radio to the meter, and from the antenna switch, because you need the bigger ones with coax. Get that in there and wrapped correctly. So you know, these are just common mode chokes, and they help with noise. If you start transmitting, think bigger. The bigger the better when you transmit. So if you're in that situation, that's what you want to do. You know, go up to the 240s. These are a little more expensive, but if you count up your cables, you can probably get by with 8 or 10 of them, and you know, you're going to set your shack up for no RF, clean it out. So I hope this helps. You know, you don't have to make a fancy box. I only did this because the antenna hookup. If I had to put in a different wire on it, I probably would have just wrapped it and hung it off the, just sit there and hung it off the coax, off the pole. But you know, that wasn't very expensive for the box and those, so I went ahead and sealed it. That's why I'm not opening it. I sealed it already. So, all right. Well, I hope that helps. Your material is the T43 type. You can use 31, but I wouldn't. You're going to lose up on the higher end of the band if you start talking up 2 meter and stuff. But the 43 type material, and just make sure your size number is equivalent to the cable, that size that you're going to be doing. And always remember, you're going to need a big one for the plugs. Okay, if you have plugs. I learned that lesson the hard way. But yeah, I made the mistake, so I'll tell you guys so you don't make the mistakes. You know, your size, these are 1/15s, okay, and you can see how small they are. They fit inside that 240, so that gives you some idea. It's kind of like a ring on the 1/15s. So I definitely go bigger unless you're doing USB cables, or maybe a small power 12-volt power line. You know, those would be okay, but I'd go bigger on your others. So you know, wrapping it, like I said, you can just do all the way around. Just don't get it too close to each other. But I did this one like a 1-to-1 balun. You can look up a 1-to-1 balun online, and you can see how they're wrapped. You can do a 9-to-1 balun wrap, something like that. But it's not really going to matter on your common mode stuff. If you're doing it off the coax. So, and that's what I'd use. I'd use coax. I wouldn't use wire on that for common mode choke. Just use your coax. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions on the different types, I would suggest going and checking if you're going to transmit, changing that type number, because you want to get a lower bandwidth than what these 43s are if you're going to transmit on HF. So I hope that helps. Let me know in the comments if that works for you guys. And like I said, these were $8 or so. These were, I think I got 4 for like $7, something like that. So give you some idea of a little bit of money you spend. But it'll help your noise floor, help your noise out. So just remember, if you're going to make a balun, you're totally different. Go to another video. I don't make baluns. So, but common mode chokes, they work great for common mode. Get the 2 different kinds. So anyway, 73 guys. I hope I see you on the next one, and I'll have something new coming out. So have a good one. 73s.